Good morning. I'm Kelly Isabel DeMarco, and I started this YouTube channel because I wanted to have a space to speak about all things green and growing and my passion for climate action, and hopefully use it as a space to inspire others to care for our planet. In June of this year, 2022, my husband was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of multiple myeloma. And so I've shifted to using this space to speak about our cancer journey. Today, it is our 16th wedding anniversary. And so I'm going to talk a bit about our marriage, about our journey, the journey that preceded our cancer journey. And the lines in the wedding vows that keep coming to me are, I do, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. And, those lines in the wedding vows, I have gotten me through a lot of really challenging times. Tim and I have had quite an interesting marriage journey. I think everyone's journey is quite unique. I think ours probably takes the cake in many respects. Tim and I were both ministers, priests serving in an order when we were both invited to consider courting each other. And we both had done relationships in lots of other ways, and our relationship at that juncture was he was my brother and one of my very best friends. So to open to him as a marriage prospect, as a partner for this life was well, I hadn't really thought of him that way. I had a ton of respect for him, but he was sort of in the box of friend and brother, and so it took me some time to kind of open to a relationship with him that looked very different from that. I think our relationship as friend and brother was easy. It was very easy to get to know Tim, to be friends with him, to feel him as my brother and my partner in service. But to open to him as a marriage partner, marriage brings up all your stuff. It was one thing to kind of enter into the committed part of a relationship. It's been another to stay. Tim and I it's funny because astrologically speaking, he is air and water. I'm fire and earth. We both do share some earth in common, so that grounds us. But he's got one way of going about things, I've got another. And there's many times where we've been inclined to think that surely my way is the right way. I'm sure none of you who are married have ever experienced that, right? Over recent years, Tim and I eventually decided to leave the organization that we served in. But when we took marriage vows to each other, our first vow was to be of service through our wedding, through our marriage. And in the context of being in an order, running a meditation center, teaching spiritual classes, and leading services, that seemed easy. It seemed like, okay, this is how we serve, and this is what we do, and this makes sense. Stepping outside of that when we left and decided to really focus on our family and our relationship and our girls, and creating a life together that looked really different than the one that we were living. That was a hard step. And that was the beginning of a really tough journey for both of us. For one, it was really hard to figure out, like, outside of that, how do we do life? You know, like, we had taken vows of service and, you know, put on certain clothing that let people know what we did. We had a container for that form of service. And when we stepped away from it and kind of reintegrated into a world that everybody else knew as normal, we had to figure out, like, where do we fit? How do we do this? And Tim being impacted by chronic pain. So let me back up a little, because I think I'm getting lost in my head, but I feel like there's important things that I want to share. Some because I feel like I just feel compelled to share some of our story, but also because I think that navigating marriage is hard no matter who's in it. It's hard to be partnered for life. And I don't know that it's right for everybody to be partnered for life. I think that, you know, there's plenty of good reasons to go, you know, to part ways. But for us, when I've kind of really taken that deep dive and the close look, there's so much that Tim and I share in common. Not the least of which is our daughters, who are 11 and 14. You know, they've really been, I think, the kind of the core impetus for us to try to work through our differences. The challenges that chronic pain has thrown into the mix, I can't underestimate those challenges, because when you're hurt, it's hard to let the world know how you feel, because, you know, hi, how are you? Well, things suck right now because I hurt. No, you don't say that. You're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm really hurting a lot, but I'm actually fine. You kind of just don't talk about it. But what happens is, at home, the people that you are closest to, you know, that's kind of your safe zone, and that's where you let the real feelings out. And for, you know, when Timmy wasn't hurting, he's great. He's fun. He's our, you know, he's probably the more fun one in our partnership. If you ask our girls, he's always got good music playing. He's always cooking good food. He loves to play a good card game. He's just, you know, and, you know, but when he's hurting, when you're hurting, you can be short-tempered. When we're little and we're hurting, we cry and we want someone to come and cuddle us and nurture us. When you get older, you kind of, that kind of, somehow that's no longer okay. And as adults, like, everybody's got to get on with their life. Everybody's got struggles and challenges. And so you learn to compartmentalize yours and kind of put some of them in hiding. And it's created kind of a daily challenge for us, because our conversations have been fewer and further between. I think over time we really just, like, started to live separate lives, and he got absorbed in farm work and then recovering from farm work, and he would rally himself to make food for us at the end of the day, and then he would go on to rest. I would come home from work And we would spend dinner time together, and then I would take over with dishes and putting the girls to bed, and then get really absorbed in my climate work and trying to grow a coaching practice. And it wasn't really the life that either of us wanted. It wasn't the one that we signed up for. It's definitely not the one that we wanted to open to when we decided to move to a farm and grow a space together that we could call home. And I think the lines in the marriage vows of in sickness and in health, those saw me through a lot of those hard times. Because I felt like it was the sickness of pain that created a real challenge for us. I watched my mom navigate 15 years with my dad, who had Parkinson's, and she was a rock star caregiver. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it, and I can stay the course. But it wasn't Parkinson's, it wasn't the disease that made marriage hard. It was, and I think what I watched from my parents is that as they navigated Parkinson's, they could talk, there was no shame around Parkinson's. I think with chronic pain, there's been a whole mixed bag of feelings around it, because it was always like, well, if I try the right thing, if I do the right thing, if I figure this out, if I have the right way of thinking, like, the pain will go away. And that's never been the case. Like, the pain never went away. And over the last 6 months, as the pain started to build and he was chasing treatments left and right to try to make it better, for me, each day I would wake up to, like, am I staying? Am I going? Am I staying? Am I going? Am I staying? Am I going? Oh, now I'm definitely going. Why the hell am I staying if his words are not kind to me? Or am I just a chicken? Like, I just can't go and chart a life of my own with the girls? But I think underneath it, I just was like, there is a lot that we share in common still, even in the midst of this. And I couldn't fathom waking up some of the days of the week not looking at my daughters. And he felt the same. And at one point he was like, I know this pain is like not resolving, and it was really like the the sound sensitivity that really became hard. He's got like bony lesions in his ears, which make sound like, if you drop a fork, it like sends him through the roof. And we took him to Freighter in January. He met with a specialist, and they diagnosed him with misophonia, which is like a hypersensitivity to sound. It actually elicits an angry response when you hear someone chew. And so I was the culprit for that. Like, I was the one that triggered the sound sensitivity. I was the one that triggered the anger. Like, I would chew, he'd get angry. I'd eat popcorn, he couldn't handle it. He'd get up and leave the room. And he's barking at the birds. And so I didn't know, like, I'm like, if I'm making your life miserable, maybe it's better that we like move into two separate places. Because I feel like anytime I'm around, I'm triggering something for you. And at one point he actually said, why don't you talk with the girls? If that would be better for the two of you, or for the three of you, to just have a space to go to where I'm not triggered and you can just like live normally, then maybe we come up with a different living arrangement. And so I actually sat down with the girls and I was like, okay, we all know about dad's pain and dad's sound sensitivity. We have choices, we have options. Like, do we want to stay and keep going the way we are? Or do we want to try something different? And I gave them some time to think about it. And later that day, they both came to me separately and just crying. And were just like, I don't want dad to have to suffer by himself. Like, this is hard, but it would be even harder to think of him, you know, like having to experience this all by himself. And so I said, okay, then we're going to need to make accommodations because he's got to feel comfortable in his own home. There's a certain time that we have to be off the floor so we're not pouncing around on the kitchen floor and keeping him awake. He slept in the basement because it's quiet and cool down there and it's dark and he gets better rest, and all of the symptoms seemed to be better when he got better rest. And you know, I think I just kept putting my own like desires and wishes and wants aside and just said, you know, if he's hurting, if he's suffering, he can't help it. You know, but I didn't know what it would take to like eventually turn the corner. And if you've listened to any of my other posts, I just prior to him getting this diagnosis, like I was doing some really serious inner work around just being fine, like being okay with or without him showing up in the way that I would love for him to in our relationship. And I felt like he actually can't. He can't show up that way because he's hurting. And right around the time when I was just like, okay, I figured out, you know, I really just decided that this, I'm still worthy of all the good things and all the good feelings in life. And it's up to me to figure that out. Like, it's not his responsibility, it's not his responsibility to do that for me. And in kind of taking some of the pressure off of him to fulfill that for me, like I really started to see him for who he is and for the pain that he was in. The pain became less of like an inconvenience for me and more of like something that I felt like compassion for and moved to do something about. And that's what took us to, you know, I made several phone calls and we got him in for labs and realized that yes, there was a whole lot more going on for him than I don't want to say just chronic pain because chronic pain sucks, but it was something way beyond anything that either of us dreamed of. And I'm not sure what I want to say about this turning point, but I feel like had I left because of the pain that he experienced before and the inconvenience that it was for me, I don't know how I would have lived with myself if I, like, all of a sudden this diagnosis also came into the picture. I think there was something about the choice to stay and the constant rub that I felt and like the places that it took me to in terms of like needing to really become the source of my own happiness. that allowed me to get close enough to him to help him in ways that I couldn't before. We both polarized from each other before, and now I think in doing some of this inner work, I stopped polarizing and I started just turning towards and opening to. And in doing that, I think it's also open space for him to do the same. And so 16 years in, it's a pretty freaking miracle that we're here. And I actually, I don't feel sad that we're going to the hospital today to get an IV cocktail, and that's how we're celebrating our 16th wedding anniversary. I feel like it's pretty much a miracle that we've made it to 16 years. I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that I can be his co-pilot through this. I think in our marriage, it's been a vehicle for me to learn so very much about myself. So very much. It's been a space for me to learn what unconditional love is, and when I really fall short of it, which is quite a lot. I feel like I'm learning at lightning speed lately what that really looks like. And I think doing the work to try to keep this farm alive and to keep our family functioning is my version of unconditional love. And it feels good. It feels good to love that way. It feels good to want to love him that way and to just open to loving him that way. I waited a long time to feel really good inside of my marriage. And at 16 years, I do. I feel good. I'm glad to be here. I choose this again today. Love is a choice. It is a decision to let energy move towards the other person, and I choose that. And I'm grateful to be here. And I'm just if you've made it to this far into this video, I'm so grateful that you're just witnessing our journey, because Timmy and I separated a lot from our former lives when we pursued a path of ministry and in the way that we did. And it meant that we kind of separated ourselves from a lot of former relationships, and I didn't know what it would take for us to open to relationships of all kinds. And I thought moving back here to Wisconsin would kind of begin to open up that world for me, his world, his former world. And it did in increments, but not a whole lot. But this most recent phase of our journey is opening me up to so many beautiful people. So many people who are so willing and eager and ready to help us. And I feel in a weird way, it's this is the marriage celebration that we never had. Ours was, within the order, and we had a very small group of people around us, and we didn't even have our immediate family there, which might be a conversation for another time. But having people message me and message us and come and help, and just getting to know the caliber of people in Timmy's life is wonderful, and I think he's appreciating the same about the people that are showing up from my life and my worlds to help us. Prior to June, I felt like we just had the four of us. I didn't know who, like, I just felt like we didn't share a whole lot of people in common. Boy, was I wrong. So, thanks for celebrating 16 with us. I'm gonna move on with the morning chores because the animals need water, and the garden needs to be watered too. And I think that's just as good a metaphor for our marriage and this journey as any. All right. Peace to you. I wish you all the best in the relationships that you're in. And just thanks for being here with us. Peace.